Welcome. My name is Mike Heath. I'm a resource specialist with the Coalition for Children, Youth, and Families. Joining me today for today's presentation is Julie Wallace, who's also a resource specialist with the Coalition. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about the importance of messaging, marketing, and materials for you and your recruitment team. So as we begin this presentation, we're going to take a deeper dive into the importance of making sure that you have a clear and consistent messaging and how to develop a marketing plan with you and your recruitment team, and making sure you have the materials, the resources, so that you can have an effective approach to recruiting foster parents at your agency. Julie and I would like you to take just a few moments to think about the qualities that your most successful foster parents have, your rock star foster parents, your foster parent champions. What qualities do they possess? And feel free to jot down some of those qualities that you feel make outstanding foster parents with your agency. Next, we would like you to think, what would you say are some of their top motivations for fostering children and youth? And again, you can write down, what are their motivations, what drives them to become foster parents in the first place. And not only that, why do they continue to be foster parents with your agency? What are their motivations? So there's a reason that we're asking you to think about your rock star foster parents and their motivation to become foster parents and remain foster parents with your agency. Research tells us that there's two types of parents that typically will become foster parents that are child-focused or child-centric, the foster parents that we want to come to our information meetings, and we want them to go through the steps and the processes to become foster parents, that they're focused on what's best for the child. Other prospective parents may have some self-guided motivations why they want to become foster parents and aren't really focused on the needs of the child, but maybe what would be beneficial for them. And we, as foster care coordinators, it's important that we really look for those foster parents that have that interest of the child first and foremost when they're considering becoming a foster parents. And I'm sure as you thought about the different characteristics of your foster parent champions, you thought of things like empathetic, compassionate, child-focused, wanting to help the birth family, to co-parent, to help the entire family. So those are all important motivations that we take into consideration. And as you're having your information meetings and talking with prospective parents, those are things to look for. What are their motivations? Why did they choose to come? And then that's what's going to be important as you're kind of moving forward in the licensing process with these families, to make sure that they are focused on the best interests of the children, as well as working in close partnership in a co-parenting relationship with the birth family or family of origin.
So as we're recruiting and talking with prospective foster parents, we may find that some folks appear to be wanting to foster to fulfill their own personal needs. Maybe they're lonely, maybe they've suffered a loss, maybe they have a need to be loved or a need to get recognition or praise. Maybe they're looking for validation as parents because of insecurities or maybe mistakes that they've made as parents. And you can see here that some of the outcomes of those types of motivated foster parents are less than ideal. They're going to foster fewer kids. They're going to leave fostering earlier. They're going to be less willing to work with your agency. They may have unrealistic expectations about what fostering is really all about. And that's not to say that the people that are more altruistically motivated aren't also doing this for some selfish reasons. everyone is going to have some of those self-oriented reasons for entering foster care licensing. And there's also the possibility that folks that come in with these more self-oriented reasons couldn't be sort of converted into more altruistic motives as they get into learning about what foster care is all about and what the needs are of children that are going to be placed with them. So these are just some things to be thinking about as you're meeting prospective foster parents and considering who's most appropriate for licensing. So let's just talk for a moment about your messaging as you are recruiting. What are some of the essentials around messaging? First of all, you want to be honest. You don't want your message to contribute to the stigma that's already associated with fostering. You do want to be honest, but you also want to be positive. You don't want to be so honest that you're driving away potential foster parents because you're scaring them. Secondly, you're providing a lot of information, but you also want to include a call to action. What is it that you want your audience to do at the end of the messaging? Even if it's something as simple as finding out more about foster care. Third, you want your messaging to resonate with the values of the folks that you're talking to. So for example, let's say you're recruiting in the Native American community. You might talk about the value of being sensitive to preserving and honoring Native American culture in the kids that are being cared for. Fourth, be specific to the needs of your community. We've all heard news stories or statistics about national or international data and about needs on that level. And it just feels maybe a little bit too far removed. So if you can zero in on what the specific needs are in your community, it's going to make people feel more urgent around acting. You want your message to be, this is not a bullet point here, but you want your message to be frequent and you want it to be strong. So when Mike and I talk about recruitment being a marathon, not a sprint, messaging is part of that. You can't just throw one thing out and expect a one and done kind of messaging to have an effect in your community. It needs to be frequent. They need to be hearing it all the time. We know that most people take about 2 years to make the decision to make that call about fostering. So you want to be sending that message out into your community on a very frequent basis so that people are getting it and thinking about it and ultimately are going to make that call. And lastly, being aimed at the people most likely to foster, the types of children you're trying to place. So let's imagine that you are living in or you're recruiting from a county or an agency where you have a lot of African American kids coming into care. You're going to want to be focusing on that community in your recruitment. The good news is that research has shown that if you recruit specifically to communities of color, you're also going to get Caucasian families inquiring about becoming licensed. So if you have that need, focus on that specific community, you're still going to end up with a well-rounded recruitment pool. So every couple of years, the Foster Care and Adoption Resource Center partners with the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families to create a statewide foster parent recruitment campaign. This Foster a Future campaign you see here on the screen is just one of the themes that has been developed. That theme changes every couple of years. We welcome you to explore the campaign and all of the different materials that are available to you. These are free for agencies to use, whether it's in public service announcements, information sessions, a recruitment event, or on your social media platforms. We invite and welcome you to utilize the materials, which include videos, posters, and other resources. And these can all be found on the Worker Toolbox on the FCARC website. So let's talk for a moment about messaging in your response system. So when people do inquire, what are some of the things you want to be sure that you cover? You want to have a compelling message about what's actually happening in your community. So this first bullet point, include compelling information about what's happening, how many kids are coming into care, was there an increase over the past couple of years, and just really present an honest representation of what's happening in your community. Because these are their kids, this is their community problem, and that's really going to drive home the need. And number two, the personal experiences of current foster parents. You might have a foster parent submit some type of statement about what barriers they overcame to become licensed. You might be something like, I never would have thought I could care for a child with prenatal drug exposure, but I received the training from my agency that I needed, and I was able to be successful. The third bullet point, include foster parents in delivering the message. We talk about foster parent champions in recruitment all the time. Nothing is more credible than having a foster parent talk about what it is like to foster and to deliver that message of what it's like to get licensed. They're so much more credible than a worker, a social worker, or someone else from the agency. So whatever you can do to include foster families in your messaging, that's going to go a long way toward inviting people in. You want to clearly communicate the expectations of your agency and what are foster parents going to be doing. For example, you want to state right up front that the goals of foster care are reunification and permanency for kids. So if you can get that goal out there right at the beginning, that could be a natural screening process for people who feel like they can't get on board with the goals of the agency or the goals of foster care. And you want to provide talking points to your whole recruitment and response team so that when people are out about in the community and they have an opportunity to run into someone who's asking about foster care, they know what those essential messaging points are and they can communicate those clearly to folks that are inquiring.
Thank you, Julie. And so now we want to talk more about marketing your message, you and your recruitment team. As Julie had mentioned, incorporating all the resources that you and your agency has, including your foster parent champions, as we talk about all the time. That's so important to include them in the process. And when you're looking at your agency or your county website, questions to ask as you're kind of reviewing that through the lens of a prospective foster parent. Is your website family friendly? Is it written in language that is clearly understood and is not, sometimes as social workers, we can use a lot of acronyms or social work language. And we have to remind ourselves that the general public, aren't as aware of those type of things. And so you really want to look at it again through the lens of a prospective family and making sure it's family friendly and easy to read, and that their families are able to access the resources and information that they need in a really efficient and quick manner. We all know that is the way most individuals are getting their information is going online and visiting websites. And just think of you yourself when you're visiting websites. If there's a bunch of text and a lot of things to read, you might just go to the next website or might not stay on that web page. But if it's family friendly, maybe there's some pictures and just some information about attending an information meeting, that is something that will be that call to action that Julie talked about earlier, and just make it easier for families to get the information that they need. Mass media, the Coalition and the Department of Children and Families, we collaborate with the Wisconsin Broadcasting Association. So we will have radio ads and television ads with the current marketing message on there. So your agency, your fiscal folks at your agency do not have to invest additional money or dollar amounts into recruitment, because the coalition, along with the Department of Children and Families, is partnering with our mass media agencies to try and get the message out and get that out across Wisconsin, wherever you may live. Social media, if your agency has a Facebook page or any other type of social media, we feel, and the national experts tell us, reinforce that fact that, again, that's where families are going. That's a great way to get the message out about the need for foster parents, the importance of foster parents, and then just, maybe having some testimonial statements that you can put on from your foster parent rock stars, or and so that they can speak to what a difference it's made for them, without, obviously breaking confidentiality, but they can talk from the heart, why they foster and what a difference it's made for them. And so that's just something to consider. If your agency doesn't have a social media presence, a lot of agencies are able to do that now, and perhaps collaborating with your county or other agency partners of how they were able to launch their social media sites is something to consider. Partnerships, collaborations with businesses, family-friendly organizations, that is so important. Again, that's getting the message out in the community. What Julie and I and the rest of our team know at the coalition is, if your community knows that there's an unmet need, if they know, for example, that X amount of children are being placed and out of state because there's not enough resources in your community, or if they know that there's a need for children to have a safe place to go, they will respond. But that you have to market, you have to get that message out in the community through your champions, again, through your agency websites, through mass media, and social media. If you're able to have that social media presence, we can't emphasize that enough. And engage community leaders. Again, there's all sorts of different service groups in your community. Every community, Julie and I and the rest of our team, we always talk that you are the experts of your community. So your recruitment team, your agency, maybe you can have a meeting where you focus on how can we get the word out to all these different leaders about the need for foster parents and the importance of foster parents, because we all know that we are constantly battling the myths about foster parenting. And so we have to make sure that there's an accurate message of the importance of foster parenting and how that makes a positive difference in the community, and that folks are needed to help these children that are in care. And then bulletin boards and targeted areas. And again, this is something that the coalition and the Department of Children and Families, we have connections and collaborations where we are able to put billboards up. So that's not something that I'm talking about billboards, more of the mass messaging, but on a smaller micro level, bulletin boards and targeted areas. I know in my local community, when I go to the library, for example, first thing I see when I walk in is a community resource board. And on that resource board, there's resources about, oh goodness, all sorts of different things for families about different events that are coming up, or maybe there's resources for families to attend different meetings. That's a great place to sit down with your local librarian and ask, would it be okay if I put a message up about for information about fostering on your community message board, or at a pizza parlor, or at the YMCA or the YWCA, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the children's museums. Again, we want you to think about all the different places where families go, and that's a great place to put those messages out. And as Julia talked about earlier, we have several different resources on VCARC's website under the Workers Toolbox, where you can print out, or we can send you those resources and you can make them unique to your agency. You can put your own little sticker on there with your agency's name and contact information, so you can get that message out in the community of the need for foster parents and who they can contact. So we've talked quite a bit about foster parent champions, and hopefully everyone that's listening to our training session today, if you don't have identified foster parent champions, that you can identify who those rock star foster parent champions are at your agency. In other words, we all know who they are. These are the families that always go above and beyond, that are always there to help out newer foster parents, are always there to welcome children into their homes. So those are individuals that you can reach out to and ask, would you be willing to XYZ? Would you be willing to come to my information session and talk and share some of your experiences, again, without breaking confidentiality, about what fostering has meant to you? As Julie had stated earlier in our presentation, who better to speak about fostering than foster parents themselves? School events, as you see on the second bulleted point, we all know that schools have different training events and different opportunities for agencies to come in and speak about their programs or their needs in the community. And that might be a great opportunity to reach out to your educational community and to other volunteers that volunteer at the schools to, again, speak about the need for foster parents and how they can go ahead and contact the correct people to follow through on attending an information meeting. And then on this third bulleted point, I know many of you have participated in booths at different events. Oftentimes we hear at the coalition from foster care coordinators and other folks at agencies that they go to fairs or they go to different events in the community, and they set up a booth and they have different materials on there. A few words of advice that we wanted to share with you about setting up a booth. If you're able to, it would be really helpful and beneficial to invite one of your foster parent champions to come with you, to be able to speak to prospective parents that come up to the booth. We recommend that instead of sitting behind a table, that you get out in front of the table so that you can have that engaged conversation with prospective parents to talk to them about foster parenting and how important that is. Again, the other thing that we recommend with booths, again, if this is possible for you, we know that there's several individuals like that have artistic skills. Maybe you could find a face painter at your local, art group or art club that would be willing to volunteer their time and come with you to a booth. And when families come and they have younger children with them, maybe when the children just love that. I know my daughter, when she was younger, she would always say, "Dad, can we please go up and go up to the face painting booth?" And parents on here, I'm sure, are agreeing with what I'm saying as well. So that's just a way for their children to be engaged with a fun activity, and that you're able to have that one-on-one conversation with their parent or parents about foster care, and making sure that they get a brochure or some of our resources through the coalition. Another thing that we've heard from different coordinators is they've invited balloon artists, how they make the balloon animals. And again, that's another way to draw in families and then have that candid conversation while the individual is making an animal for the child, that you can talk to the parent and about foster parenting and how to get started. And then it's really important that you stay connected to families that do come and talk with you at the booth or event that you're participating in. So if you have a sign-in sheet where you can get their phone number, their name, their email, if they're willing to share, whatever contact information you're able to get is really essential, because what you're going to want to do after you have this event is you're going to want to do a follow-up call or an email with that person and just, do you have any questions? Would you like to attend an upcoming session? Here's where it's going to be. And we're so glad that you came and spoke with us. That's important to have those personal connections. And then I kind of talked a little bit already about the tables at family focused resource fairs. So whatever events that are happening in your community, again, where you can have an agency presence and you can invite your foster parent champions. We haven't talked about this yet, but it's also if you have a former youth in care that would be willing to come and volunteer their time and partner with you and be willing to talk about their experience of being in care and what a difference it made for them. Sometimes just, again, that the myth and the stigma of foster care, and I know many of you that are listening right now are having that ongoing challenge of recruiting foster parents for tweens and teens. And so there's kind of that fear factor, for lack of a better phrase or terminology, that they're just not sure. Like, we can foster the little ones, but we're nervous about fostering the teens and tweens. And so we know that you hear that a lot. But again, who better to kind of reduce that fear and that stigma of having a young adult that had spent some time, that can, maybe share some really powerful impact statements about how beneficial it was for them for being in care, and how it got them to where they are today, wherever they are at their stage in life. But so those are just a couple things to think about. If you're going out in the community, that's wonderful, but make sure you have information about your agency. Again, feel free to reach out to the coalition. We can make sure that you have resources that you can tailor to your agency and share with families, and make sure that you have some activities. I know some agencies also have like games, or I know one agency made a Plinko board. And again, who doesn't like to, play, some fun games and win some fun prizes? So anything you can do creatively. So sit down with your recruitment team and share some ideas of what you think would work at your events coming up. And again, what would draw people in? Because if you just have the candy jar and the pens, you know what's going to happen, right? People are going to come up and take the candy, not make eye contact, and then kind of walk away. And you're not going to have that opportunity to have that connection or just that conversation with them. So think of some creative ideas. We've shared a few with you today in this presentation, but we know that your recruitment team can come up with even additional creative ideas going forward. So some of the other important things, I kind of touched on a lot of these things, except have a compelling story. Julie talked earlier about that call to action. Again, it's people really need to know that there is a need for foster parenting, and know how important it is in the work that foster parents do, that heart work that I talked about earlier. So have maybe a testimonial. Maybe you could have a laptop there and play some of our public service announcements that we have on FCARC's website that shows, our current campaign and different videos, or have a foster parent, like I said, a foster parent champion there, or former youth in care, to have that conversation. I talked about the importance of getting in front of the table, having those activities, making sure you gather that contact information for that prospective family. And then just, would it be okay if I followed up with you in about a week? Because I'd really like to talk with you more and make sure that we answer any questions that you have or that you thought of since you've met with us. So again, having that call to action and just getting that information out. If you have like a list of your upcoming information meetings, which I know many of you on this training session have that already kind of scheduled for the year or for the next several months, bring that along so that they know how to contact you and when the next upcoming information meeting is, so that they can go and attend and hear additional information at that time.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And we're going to dive deeper for a moment into the agency and county websites. We all know that in these times, a lot of people don't want to make a phone call. They're not comfortable on the phone. It's just not their mode of communication. They're really more web-based. So we really encourage you to get your agency and or county websites have a how to become a foster parent page, one dedicated to recruitment if possible. And we know sometimes that can be challenging to get those things past your web folks. But if you can really make the case for the fact that people are going to go to your website before they make a call, it really becomes clear what an opportunity it is to connect with people through online media. When you're thinking about creating your page or revising your county website or making a foster parent specific page, there's some things that you want to think about including, like basic licensing requirements. Lots of people think that they're not going to make the requirements. Oh, maybe I have to own my own home. Maybe I can't have absolutely anything on my record, or it's going to be a barrier. So there are all kinds of myths that you can bust on this foster parent page, and, make it clear that there are things that we think might be true about barriers that really aren't. Have a frequently asked questions page. What am I going to need to do to connect and get the licensing process started? What is licensing going to look like? How long is it going to take? What are the components? What does training look like? And then, as Mike mentioned, if you've got information meetings already set up and scheduled, what a great way to just get the word out and have people just be able to click a button, register, and it's that easy for them to sign up and connect with your agency around information meetings. You want to make sure your contact information on your website is accurate. Mike and I, as we work with agencies, we go to a lot of websites where they've got, the third coordinator back still listed, and an incorrect phone number. And maybe the email address doesn't even work. So just be checking on that and making sure that the information is accurate, that it's easy for people to connect with you. Make it clear that you're happy to just answer questions, make it non-threatening so that they do engage with you, so that they can learn more. And then you might have people that are interested in foster care, but they know that right now that's not something they can do. Give them ideas for other ways to help. Lots of people want to connect with your agency and volunteer or provide items that they think might be helpful to children in foster care. Maybe they're thinking about being a respite provider. Maybe they'd like to do help with the recruitment process, even though they don't want to foster. So have some lists of ways that regular people can help, even if they don't want to become licensed. And then here we just wanted to mention, we talk about social media a lot, but there's really nothing wrong with engaging with traditional mass media. You can do interviews with local newspapers or radio stations. During Foster Care Month, reporters are always looking for stories. They're looking to connect with your agency to find out, what is Foster Care Month all about? Why do we care? What's the need? So that's a great and easy way to connect with media, during May every year. If you're going to have a recruitment event, be sure to get it out with a press release or a story in the newspaper. Make sure that it's not just something that your agency knows about. How can you get it out into the community? Utilize mass media in whatever way you can. A human interest story. I mean, we all know we're somewhat limited by confidentiality, right? But surely your agency has had some really compelling human interest stories around foster care that you could find a way to share, even if it's sharing a story and keeping the identities of the folks confidential. There are ways to get those compelling stories out there using mass media. And then social media, Mike talked about that. Let's just expand on that and dive a little bit deeper. Lots of agencies are not aware that they can purchase Facebook targeted ads. You can put out ads on Facebook that only go to people who are living in your county. The demographics are something that you can really dive deep on. You could select your audience based on their age, their gender, their education, their relationship status, their job title. All kinds of demographics you can zero in on, like who are the folks that are going to be most likely to be interested in fostering, and zero in on those qualities. Their interests, maybe you want to look for people who have interests that are really family friendly as a way to zero in on your targeted population. You can zero in on behaviors like purchase behaviors, device usage. If you're a shoe shop, you can target it in on people who have recently purchased shoes. Maybe for foster care, you want to target in on people who are buying parenting, products and books about parenting. Maybe you're looking for people that are buying family types of products, people that are engaging in, camps for kids or that kind of thing. And then connections. Do you have a Facebook page already and you want to target the people that are already connected to that Facebook page, or do you want to specifically look for people that are already not connected with your agency on social media? So some of the other platforms you might consider are YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. You might think about starting a blog as a way to draw people in and create interest around what's happening in your agency. So there's a whole body of knowledge and expertise around using social media. We encourage you to seek out recruitment team members from your community who have social media expertise. That way you're not having to pay for that that advice. So, utilize what's out there and get those folks involved. That's one way for people to volunteer and help out with your agency and not have to actually, if they're not interested in actually fostering themselves. And then business and community partnerships. If you get people on your team who are leaders in your local business, you might have access to resources that you might otherwise not be able to tap into, like, for example, event spaces for recruitment events, maybe food, maybe entertainment, or maybe just people with expertise. This is why you really want to develop business and community partnerships as you're recruiting and as you're setting up your team. Posting flyers in community or business buildings gives your foster parent champions or you an opportunity to engage in conversations with the leaders of those businesses or organizations, and once again put out the message around need in your community. And then in zip codes where foster families are likely to be recruited from, you could do things like flyers in pizza boxes, in grocery bags. Mike talked earlier about all kinds of, creative marketing that you can do in targeted zip codes. And community leaders, again, who are the people, who are the influencers in your area, and how do you connect with them? You want to be engaging with community leaders who understand how to connect with families in your local community. Faith communities is a really obvious one that we talk about all the time. Do you have a clergy association? Are there groups of churches in your local community that you can connect with? I mean, even if it's just getting a statement put on a church's Facebook page, letting folks know about the need for foster families in your community. You might be able to do a presentation at a local church or a place of worship. Community service organizations, again, Mike spoke to that. Kiwanis, Rotary, the Elks Club, all kinds of organizations are usually present, even in small rural communities. So tap into those for getting your message out there. And then, of course, family-friendly or family-oriented groups like the YWCA or YMCA, sports booster clubs, parks and rec, anything where families are gathering. You want to try and connect with those organizations. And again, you can either connect with them directly or invite these folks to be on your recruitment team. That's such a great way to not only utilize their expertise, but have them connect with their networks in the community and increase the getting your message out there.
So going back to materials again, just kind of a reminder that, we, like Julie had mentioned, we every couple of years we have the different campaign in collaboration with the Department of Children and Families and the public service announcements. So again, those are things that we work on a statewide basis, so your agency doesn't have to create a new campaign. The research tells us again that having one standard campaign is the best way to get the message out. So prospective families don't get confused if they hear all sorts of different campaigns. So we kind of take care of that in collaboration with the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. As we mentioned throughout this presentation, the coalition, we have several printed materials that are available for free for your agency to order. Again, if you just go on VCARC's website, it's wifostercareandadoption.org. You just go on that, and under Workers Tools, you can see all the different materials that we have of postcards and different sizes of the current campaign that you can order and customize, again, specific to your agency to get that information out in the community. That's general recruitment again, but it's important to get that word out so families know about you and know about how to start the foster care process, I should say. And then there's the recruitment videos and the media toolkit. Again, we have a wealth of resources on the FCARC website under the workers tools. And we would really encourage you, if you haven't visited that website and under that workers toolbox section, there's a great variety of resources in that. We would encourage you to share that with your recruitment team so that you're all on the same page and you're all aware of all the different resources that are available through FCARC, and which ones that you would like to incorporate in your recruitment planning. So materials are covered. We have those for you. We will make sure that we get those sent to you. Just reach out to Julia or myself by email, or Sharon by email. Give us a call at the coalition, and we will make sure that we get the materials sent out to your agency. And I know several folks that are tuning in right now, listening, have contacted us throughout the years, because like Julia had mentioned, there's been several different campaigns throughout the years, and they really appreciate having that material there, that you don't have to create it on your own, because we already have that available for you. So I'd encourage you to reach out to us if you are in need of any materials. So putting this all together, the messaging, marketing, materials, I keep thinking of, real estate, the 3 L's, location. But when it comes to recruitment, you want to make sure you have that clear and consistent messaging. You want to have that marketing, and you have the materials. We have the materials that we will get to you. Your recruitment team will come up with a messaging, what you want to say to the different community members that we've talked about. And make that, come up with a plan through your recruitment team and make that specific to the needs of your community. This is all about connections, all about relationships, all about communication. Again, getting the word out to your community leaders and your community members of what the need is. And Julie and I want to remind all of you that we understand that it can get frustrating, because again, there's not always going to be a quick response. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But every time you go out and do an event, every time you go out in the community, every time you meet with your recruitment team and come up with plans and set an agenda of what you want to accomplish in the next quarter or two, you are planting those seeds in your community that will eventually let folks know that there is a need and how they can contact you. And as we've mentioned in this training session, perhaps those folks can't be foster parents per se, but what other ways can they help you and your agency and your families and the children that are in care? There's a multitude of ways. And again, you and your recruitment team can create that together and discuss that when you get together. But, just as a reminder, as you can see on the last bulleted point, your marketing message needs to be frequent, clear, and consistent. So getting that message out consistently. And it's not just you, the coordinator, that has to do this. This is you and your recruitment team and your colleagues at your agency, all working in collaboration, because everyone at your agency needs the support of having enough foster parents so that children have a safe place to go. And so you all need to work together. And so perhaps, and I know we've talked about this several times, Julie and I and Sharon, including other folks, other colleagues at your agency that are maybe in different departments, and getting expertise and information and insight from them on different ways to get the word out in the community. Because perhaps they have some connections that that you might not be aware of, that they could connect you to, and just having that greater ownership by your entire agency, that you're going to rally behind this messaging, marketing, materials, and with your recruitment efforts. It cannot be one person. It has to be a team-led effort at your agency. So homework, you're like, what, Mike, Julie, you guys are giving us homework? We think it's important. We've talked and shared a lot of different resources throughout our training session. And so here's some things that you could bring back potentially to your recruitment team and discuss. And think about, and have further discussions. And as you're developing your strategy and your plan and what your message is going to be, these are some potential questions that can start that facilitated conversation so that you guys can start moving forward and coming up with that marketing plan together, and looking at all the different things that we've talked about, looking at your web page, looking at if you have social media presence, maybe creating some scripts for, PSAs on the radio, or, coming up with a canned letter to the editor of not just in foster care month, but throughout the year, of the need, importance, and value of foster parents in the foster care program in the community, to keep kids connected to their community sports, to keep kids connected to their families of origin. That's so important. And that message, one month out of the year, we all know that's not going to be enough. It's got to be that consistent, continual planting that seed, getting that message out. So these are just some things for you all to consider. And like I said, we would recommend that you bring them to your recruitment team for further discussion, and feel free to reach out to Julie and I or Sharon if you have any questions, or would like some additional resources. But these are definitely some great starting points to kind of follow up on what Julie and I have shared with you this afternoon.
So just to reiterate, as Mike mentioned, if as you're working through some of those questions about your own agency and your own messaging, if you have questions about how to obtain that data, how to put it together, how to come up with a cohesive message and marketing plan, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at the Coalition. Recruitment and retention are things that we love to do and love to answer questions about. So you can call us, shoot us an email. Here's the general email box address here on this slide. So don't hesitate to reach out if you do have questions. And also in this series, we just want to mention that, Mike was just diving a little bit deeper into having a team and a plan. And so we just want to mention that there's additional details about those processes on other modules in this recruitment series. So check those out. We know that when you have a plan in writing, you're going to be much more likely to carry it out, to tweak it, to be looking at it and evaluating whether or not it's working. If you're just getting together and meeting and talking, it's very difficult to set goals and deadlines and to delegate tasks to different people. So write out your recruitment plan. We have a template that you can use. It's available on these modules. And if you need more information about gathering your team and setting your team up and how to proceed on that, that's available in another module as well. So we encourage you to check out all 4 modules and let us know if you have questions. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We look forward to hearing from you and supporting you in your recruitment of foster families around the state of Wisconsin.